Kia ora koutou, ko dia ho, haramai. Welcome to another of our virtual Makerspace sessions. We're going to send you off for a quick brain teaser, and then we will be back with our experiments for today. Which is the view from above? Press pause or continue to wait for the answer. The answer is C. You'll see from the base the two green lines. That gives it away. Well, welcome back. For our first experiment, we are going to look at the power of yeast. And what we're going to attempt to do is something that we've done in one of our other experiments, which is to blow up a balloon. Now, I've had to set this up a little bit earlier just so we can show you some time lapse and show you the final result. So for now, let's take a look at what we did. Okay, so this is what we're going to need for this particular experiment. We're going to need a couple of tablespoons of sugar, 300 ml of water, an empty small drink bottle, a balloon, and a packet of instant dried yeast. So we're going to tip the yeast into the warm water. I'm going to add the sugar. I'm going to mix until the sugar is dissolved. Then we're going to tip our mixture into our bottle. That should be it. I'm going to warm up our balloon. Just do that in your hands. Give it a bit of a stretch. And place the balloon over the top of our bottle. Make sure it's tight. And then we're going to come back in an hour and see what happens. Okay, so in this experiment we are making a solar stem, and what we're going to attempt to do is to capture some fresh water out of some salted water that we are going to make. So let's have a bit of a close-up at what we're going to do and need. So we're going to need a bowl. I have cut down a drink bottle, but if you have a very small shallow glass jar, that would be perfect. We obviously need salt. I've got a cup of water here. I've got my tablespoon to measure out the salt. I've got some weights here to hold down the plastic container. I've got a marble and I've got some cling wrap. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our salted water to start. Now, I have with my piece of plastic drink bottle, I have put some tape, electrical tape around the top, and that's just to stop me from hurting myself on any sharp edges, and also so it doesn't pierce the top of the cling wrap. So I'm going to put some of my pebbles in here, and this is just to weigh the container down, because we're going to put it in this bowl. And then we're going to surround it with our salted water. So we pour that in, and we don't want it to float. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cover this with some cling wrap. Now we're going to make it reasonably tight, but not too tight. But make sure that there's a nice seal. And then we're going to place our marble on the top and press it down gently. What we're looking for, and again we'll show you this up closely, our cling wrap, because what we're hoping to do is once the water starts evaporating into the cling film, we're hoping that it will drip down towards the marble and then go into our container to capture the water. Okay, so this is ready to take outside. It helps if it's a bright sunny day and a warm day, but we'll see how we go anyway. And I did this experiment earlier this morning and we have left it outside all morning, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, so just having a look at our bowl at the moment. This has been out all morning. You can see that some of the condensation has started and some of it has dripped into our container, but not as much as we were hoping for at this stage. So we'll check on it a little bit later. So I've brought my solar still inside and it's sitting behind the glass door here, and you can see the condensation in the top, and it is starting to pull around the glass jar we've got there. It's probably not enough to be able to test it, but I think you get the idea, and I think on a very bright, hot, sunny day would have a lot more success with this particular experiment, but it's always good to try. So what were we hoping for today? The heat from the sun causes the water to evaporate, leaving the salt behind. But when the water vapour hits the cling film, it condenses, and hopefully with the marble weighing down the cling film, it will then force the water down into the container that we've got in the bottom of the bowl. If we'd have collected enough water, we would be able to taste it and test it and hopefully find that the water was as fresh as we were expecting with the salt left in the bottom of the bowl. Perhaps it's an experiment that we could try over the summer. Okay, so this next experiment is a mini melt. It also required a little bit of preparation before now. So this morning I actually made some ice cubes. I made some blue ones, and that's just using water and some blue food colouring. Now, for our mini melt, we're going to need a glass, some water and some oil, and of course our ice cube. And we're going to put the time-lapse camera on this and see what happens. So let's get that close-up happening. So into my glass, I'm going to fill it 1/3 of water, and then put in some vegetable oil until it's about 2/3 full. And as we've seen before, the oil should sit on top of the water, which of course it does. Then we're going to take an ice cube out of our tray, and we're going to put it in our solution, and we're going to watch and see what happens. So after about 30 minutes, our ice cube has melted completely, and the coloured cold water has stayed at the bottom of the glass, and the oil is clear. The water is still in liquid form, it is denser than the oil, and so the oil still continues to float on top. For this last experiment, we're actually going to leave it overnight and see what happens. I have to admit that the crystal creation that we tried to make in the last session, I couldn't get it to work, but I'm rest assured that if I had have used enough sugar, it would have worked. So if someone at home is happy for you to use lots and lots of sugar to make some crystals, then by all means give it a go. So let's just take a closer look at what we're going to do for this particular experiment and what you will need. So what we're going to need is we're going to need our jar, which has warm water in it. We're going to mix together some soil, some sand, and an equal amount of salt. I'm just doing this on some filter paper. Put my filter paper into a little bit of a funnel so I can tip this into our jar. I'm going to give that a mix. So we're going to leave this now overnight and we'll have a look at it again in our next session. Well, I hope you enjoyed the experiments we did today. Thanks for joining me. Feel free to drop us a line or send us some pictures of what you've been doing with your experiments. Ka kite.